Welcome to the Lift Effect podcast, and I'm your host, Eddy Moratin. I'm excited today to share with you a conversation with someone who has served our country valiantly and instilled wisdom that has changed the lives of so many young people. And today he's going to talk about a number of things across his story, but we'll learn that a valuable ingredient in successfully educating children to succeed has nothing to do with academics. Today's episode is a really fun one for me as we have been doing this Lift Effect podcast, starting with the history before Lift. We've looked at the history of the neighborhood, we've looked at the leadership in the neighborhood, and we're looking at how the future of the neighborhood is really founded on education, the education of our children and how we strive to help them succeed. And few people are better known for being a champion for education, for scholarships, for opportunity, for exposure, for our high schoolers and children of all ages in the communities of Westlakes and in Orlando as Admiral David Brewer. A child of this community who came here to his family homestead to care for his parents and could not help but become involved even after valiantly serving our country as a 3-star Navy admiral who led the First Fleet into the Gulf War, who led a school system in LA, and continues to find ways to roll up his sleeves and serve his community today. Before we dive into his story, I want you to notice that through the thread of his own personal narrative and the examples of leadership, there is a core lesson that what our children need most in order to thrive and succeed in school academically, in order to receive the best that adults in their lives have to offer, is often not so much information, but the power of a meaningful, loving, and caring relationship. To show up and care, to be present, to want to lean in and invest ourselves in the lives of the next generation. That is why at Lift Orlando, we're so focused on the idea of strengthening neighborhoods. It's our way of investing in the future of our children by investing in them and their parents, strengthening the schools and the neighborhoods around them. It's our mission to strengthen neighborhoods so people can thrive. And we want to do that to create an ecosystem that's rich in opportunity for every child to have a bright future, regardless of their zip code. To hear a great example in this story and the ways in which he is still trying to make a great impact for other children in the community, listen to the story by Admiral David Brewer. Admiral, I'm so happy to welcome you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me in the studio.
I'm glad to be here, Eddy.
Oh, man. You have been such a great, not just friend and encourager in the work, but a great voice of wisdom. You've brought your seasoned experience to not only the work of Lift Orlando, but the work of how neighborhoods have organized here in Westlakes and seen great and positive things happen. And I'm always blessed by both your remarks about ways to think about leadership challenges in this work, but also the perspectives that you've gained along the way. So I'm grateful for a chance to just sit down and hear a little bit more of your story. I'd love to ask you about your early days, Admiral. Tell me a little bit more. I had the privilege of meeting your mother once. I never got to meet your dad, but tell me about them. Tell me about your upbringing and how did you learn to serve and to be committed to serving others the way that you are?
Well, you know, Eddy, I'm an octogenarian here shortly. So
that is wild.
I don't know how much time you have. But anyway, so in all seriousness, I was born in Farmville, Virginia. My parents met at Tuskegee. My father was a third-generation college graduate, and he was the third of 3 children to graduate from college. My father went to World War II. And my mother she transferred from Tuskegee to Alabama A&M. She graduated in 42. Then they moved to Farmville, Virginia. That has a history all of its own because R.R. Moulton High School was there. And my babysitter was a young lady by the name of Barbara Johns. And she led the boycott of Farmville, Virginia, and that whole Prince Edward County school district at the time. And so that sort of kind of my background in terms of history. And of course, that particular case was a part of Brown versus the Board of Education. And eventually, and we were very good friends with the Johns family. I was very small. But Vernon Johns was also featured in a movie. He was played by James Earl Jones. And so that's that connection. So we moved to Orlando in 1952. And we stayed at 638 Holden Street, which is now Anderson Street, in the Crooms Maxey home. And we stayed in 2 rooms up in with Mrs. Maxey and her husband at the time.
Wow.
And we stayed there from 1952 to 1958. Then we moved here to the Clear Lake area where we are now. And that home was built in 1958, and it's still the home house. And, you know, my parents, just like they were both educators. My father taught at Jones High School. The story behind him at Jones is this. When he was hired in 1952, he told the principal that I'm going to run your food service. He had a Bachelor of Science in dietetics. I'm going to run your food service, but I will only serve a meat, a starch, a vegetable, dessert, milk, orange juice, and water. So the soda industry went crazy. They said, you can't hire a brewer. And so my father's hiring was kicked up to the school board. And so the school board said, given the poverty rate in Orlando at that time, Jones was the only black high school in that area, in Orlando. There were other ones, Apopka and Eatonville, Hungerford and Eatonville. But so his hiring was kicked up to the school board because of that. So that was sort of a basis for me in terms of nutrition, because I do a podcast on nutrition. Everybody knows that. And my father had a Bachelor of Science in at that time, nutrition. And so it was a very humble beginning, just like most African-American families during that era. It was a very humble beginning. And of course, my father taught at Jones for 33 years, eventually ran what is now Career Tech program at Jones. And my mother taught in the public school system as an elementary school teacher for almost 45 years.
Wow.
She didn't retire until she was 83. So I learned something from that. Stay active, stay engaged. And so I'm 80. I'll be 80 in May.
Wow.
And
you come by that longevity, honestly.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, the longevity really, Eddie, is based on staying mentally active and, of course, eating the right foods. And, of course, so I had that right combination with my parents.
Yeah. Now, tell us a little bit of your journey, school, occupationally, because you've really lived a life of service.
Yes. I graduated from Jones in '63. I was a year ahead of myself. I started at West Louisville Elementary School in Jacksonville. That's another story. While my parents were finishing up their teaching certificates, and I went to Howard University initially. And Howard was bright lights, big city, Washington, D.C. And there were 3 of us who went. And I stayed there for almost 3 years, over 3 years. And I finally transferred to Prairie View A&M University in Texas. The West Louisville Elementary School story is the story of an aunt that started me in that school while my parents were off getting their teaching certificates. And that same aunt was a professor at Prairie View A&M University. So she started me in school and she saw me finish school.
Wow.
My Aunt Ruth. My Aunt Ruth lived to age 93 years old.
Oh my goodness.
She lived to 93. Anyway, so I went to Prairie View. When I got there, at that time there was a draft. And so when I got there, it said, look, you have to finish up your military service. Otherwise you're going to get drafted and you're going to Vietnam. I said, well, let me go and get it. I went and got in the Navy. The history behind the Navy at Prairie View is it was the first Naval ROTC unit at a historically black college or university.
Oh, wow.
And this was in 1968. And so think about who was president. Johnson said, if there's going to be a Naval ROTC unit at an HBCU, it's going to be in one of my schools. And so they put it at Prairie View.
Huh.
So that's how that started. I was commissioned in 1970. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in biology with a minor in chemistry. And when we joined the Navy in 1970, there were 256 black officers in the United States Navy.
256
out of 72,000
in the entire Navy.
Yes.
Wow.
The Navy was woefully behind in terms of promoting
Integration.
African Americans and integration. In fact, another connection through Tuskegee with my father is my father's classmate was Daniel Chappie James, Daniel Chappie James, who became the first 4-star general, African American general in the armed forces.
Wow.
Chappie, by the time I graduated from Prairie View, had already made general in the Air Force. The Navy had no admirals and only 5 Navy captains or colonels. So we were joining a Navy that, to put it bluntly, was obviously not for African Americans.
Yeah.
But it took some strong leadership on the part of several admirals, et cetera, to push it through. I stayed in the Navy. I married my beautiful wife in 1978. We moved to San Diego, great city, by the way, one of the most beautiful cities in the country. And our daughter was born in 1980 when I was deployed. Thank current events. I was deployed off of the coast of Iran for 110 days during the Iranian crisis. So I have that Iran experience. And so the North Koreans started acting up. I was on my way back, and I missed my daughter's birth by 8 hours.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that was kind of a thing.
Tough, yes.
Yeah, but it was tough. The Navy was pretty tough. I was called a lot of racial slurs, to be honest with you. Some white sailors say they didn't want to work for me. So it was pretty tough. But I think the best thing that happened, Eddie, is the fact that I grew up in the South. So I didn't overreact to racism like some other people would have because I had experienced it. Yeah. And I knew if you overreacted to it, there was not going to be a good outcome to that. So I didn't overreact. I stood my ground. Don't get me wrong. I didn't tolerate it, but I didn't overreact to it. So I eventually emerged and commanded my first ship in 1986. And then we won what they call a Battle Efficiency Award. I was the #1 CO. Wow. And then in 1990, I took over command of my second ship. And then in 1994, I became the 12th African American admiral in the United States Navy.
So huge. I feel like I want to play a track of applause when you say that. It's like amazing.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, you led our first fleet into the Gulf War.
No, so fast forward. Yeah. 2001. Yeah. I went to Washington, D.C. I took over that was my last admiral's job. I was the commander of Military SEALer Command. Wow. And I took over 12 days before 9/11.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm sitting in my office. I take that back. I was getting some classified briefings. And so I was getting a classified briefing. My public affairs officer runs up to me and she says, Admiral, a plane just hit the World Trade Center. I said, oh my God, that must have been a horrible accident. I'm deep in a skiff because I couldn't see anything. There was no TV. Yeah. She came back 15 minutes later. She said, another plane hit the other Twin Tower. I said, meeting is over. I go up to my office. I'm sitting in my office. I'm on the Anacostia River. I can see the Pentagon. And next thing you know, boom, plane hits the Pentagon. And we were just shut down, obviously, for the rest of the day. We lost several sailors in that attack, one of whom was one of my officers when I was in my first command, who was Captain Jerry DeCanto. And Jerry was on his way to major command of an Aegis cruiser, and he was killed in that attack in the Pentagon. And that was just devastating for him and his family. And so we witnessed that. So after that, I was at war for 4 years. I had the military's logistics fleet of ships. I had over 120 ships. Wow. And it grew to over 200 ships during the war. And we were going back and forth. In fact, my public affairs officer said, you know how much gas we pumped so far? Speaking of fuel and gas. Yes. So we pumped 8 billion gallons of fuel. And I told her name was Marge Holtz. I said, Marge, nobody's going to understand that. So help me do something to get the American people to understand just how much fuel that is. And she said, well, I said, I tell you what was the attack was in New York, the World Trade Center. Give them a New York example. I said, get the cubic feet of the Empire State Building. So that's what we did. We pumped enough fuel to fill the Empire State Building 31 times.
Oh my gosh.
That's how much gas we pumped. And then we, combat cargo, we pumped enough gas. If you took an SUV and lined them up bumper to bumper in square footage, the SUVs would line up from New York to LA back to Vegas. So that's 990,000 SUVs. That's how much combat cargo. Anyway, I went into Iraq. I flew in. Because I wanted to see if I could get my ships in there once we stabilized the South. I said I want to see if I can get my ships in there so that we don't have to go so far in order to get supplies and fuel. And it was just too dangerous. And a very funny story. I had an armed guard because it was combat zone. I had an armed guard, and I went to the bathroom, and I came back out, and my armed guard said, "Sir, God, you know what?"
Yeah.
He said, "You can't go anywhere without me."
He was mad that you went to the bathroom without him.
He said,
he'd been looking for you.
Yeah, he was looking. He said, "Where's the Admiral? Where's the Admiral?" He's in the bathroom. So it was funny. But anyway, so that was quite a story. So I stayed in that job for 4.5 years, the longest serving commander of military SEAL, mainly because of the war.
Wow.
And in fact, the chief of naval operations at that time called me up and said, Mike Mullen was his name, good friend, Admiral Mike Mullen. He said, "Dave, don't you want to stay a little bit longer?" He said, "No." I said, "Admiral, I'm tired. It's time to go." And so I retired, and then I got a strange phone call. I got a phone call that said, "Are you David Brewer?" I said, "Yes." "Are you Admiral David Brewer?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Who is this?" He said, "We are a search firm, and somebody has nominated you to be a candidate for superintendent of schools for Los Angeles." I said, "Well, who in the heck did that?" I didn't say heck. I said, "Who in the heck did that?" And so my wife, who has a doctorate in education, said, "Well, you just put your name in there, just play with it." So I did. 3 interviews later, I became superintendent of schools for LA. Wow. And what they focused on,
for the Los Angeles School District.
Yes, the second largest school district in the nation. And at that time, 700,000 students, 800 schools. It has decreased in size since then. In fact, public education overall, public schools overall have decreased in terms of student enrollment. Anyway, so I took the job, and I put in, because of the career tech piece, what they selected me for was, I was the vice, one of my shore jobs before I went to military Sea Lift Command was I was the vice chief of naval education and training up in Pensacola. And what we did there, I had a great boss. He was a 3-star, John Crane. So John and I negotiated with the American Council on Education to give college credit for Navy training. Navy training is career tech. So I took that concept to LA. I said I want to take care of not only the academics. We had the highest academic gains while I was there in the previous 5 years. Had the largest 12th grade class in 30 years. So we were doing well. And that's when I learned about politics and public education. That's another story. And I created the career tech program, which was what we call the Triple Crown program. You get a high school diploma, and a career tech certification, and an associate's degree.
Wow. So
we had sailors finishing their Navy training with associate's degrees. What that did was that launched them in terms of their post-Navy careers.
Of course.
A lot of them ended up with bachelor's degrees, even though they were enlisted. I'll be honest with you, our sailors are the anchor of our Navy, period. One of the reasons I was so successful is because I depended on my NCOs, or my chief petty officers, my non-commissioned officers. They were the anchor on my ships. They had the experience. I said, "Chiefs, you run the ship." Okay? All right? you run it because you have more experience than anybody else, maybe with the exception of a few, like the executive officer or a couple of department heads. But everybody else, you've got the experience. So I want you to run it. So I looked at that and said, these people are very successful when they leave the Navy. Okay, because of that career tech training, and all of the and the educational piece. Of course, they have the leadership. So we implemented that. First kid that graduated as a plumber, and he opted to just get his associate's degree because here was the other key. If you have your associate's degree, you go to a 4-year college. You don't have to get admitted. You just, you're what they call a freshman in junior status. Valencia, right here, has played that strategy extremely well. And as you already know, Jones High now has full scholarships with Valencia.
Yeah.
So
which offers a direct connect to UCF.
Right. Yeah. Which is a direct. In fact, that was the reason UCF grew so fast. At one point, UCF had more juniors and seniors than they did freshmen and sophomores because of the contract that they had with Valencia. And so that was all playing into my strategy and when it came to LA. So I stayed in LA for 2 years. Politics, the mayor was trying to take over the school board and the district. The school board that brought me in defied him. When 3 of them left, I left. That's the way the politics works.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what you did.
No.
Okay.
Now, you handled a job like that one for the time that you did, served our country at the highest levels. Come to Orlando, what brings you home, and why didn't you just put your feet up and kick back and take a break? It seems like you came back home and then got involved here because there's countless ways that you've been serving the community here.
Well, what brought me back to Orlando is I'm an only child. And my father died in 2005 while I was still on active duty. That's the only time I've ever taken 30 days leave. I came home to look after him and my mother. And so I left. Once I left LA, my mother was down here by herself and she didn't drive. Okay. She didn't drive. And so I said, okay, fine. So my wife and I said, well, you need to get down there and take care of her. Well, that turned into a long ride because by that time, as I said, my father was a nutritionist. And so that came natural to me just to study nutrition. And of course, I have the Brewer Report podcast now with my daughter, and we talk about nutrition. We've done over almost 40 podcasts so far. What I learned in that experience is that, the more plant-based you are, the longer you're going to live. As I said, no one in my mother's family had made it to 80. And here she was almost 90 because of my father. So I just grabbed that mantle and took her. I thought, you can't predict how long a 90-year-old is going to live.
No.
But I got down here and I changed her diet. I put on super smoothies and lots of plant-based. She still had a chitlin. She was a chitlin lady, by the way. She loved
her chitlin.
Oh my God. So I put on a more plant-based diet. And then at the grand old age of 94, she calls me David III because I'm the third David in the Brewer family. My grandfather was David Sr., one of the most disciplined men I've ever met. He was a postman, a walking postman for over 40 years, never missed a day, and was never late, got a gold plaque from the Postmaster General.
Wow.
So some of that discipline kind of made it through that. He lived to be 88. And my father passed at 85. And so anyway, I kind of leveraged that. And so I changed the diet. I said, Mama, she loved those smoothies. She likes sweet stuff anyway. I put dates in them. I don't put sugar in them, but dates and a lot of vegetables and fruit and stuff like that. And of course, I've learned a lot since then. But anyway, at 94, she said, look, David III, I want to go to France. I said, why, Mama? Because my daddy fought in World War I. I want to see where he matriculated. So at 94, my wife and I had been to Paris when I was on active duty. So Stacy hasn't. So we grab Stacy, my daughter, and we go to Paris, France.
Wow.
And it's a fabulous tour called Black Paris and Beyond. And they take you through all of the history of the African Americans in France, from World War I on. Actually, before that, because they actually showed us the apartment where Sally Heming and Thomas Jefferson lived.
Oh, wow.
It's a heck of a tour. Anyway, so we go there, and my mother, it was a fabulous visit. And we went to the Moulin Rouge show. And we pull up. We had a wheelchair for my mother because we didn't want her walking a long way. And so the Moulin Rouge people saw us getting ready to go to the back of the line and says, no, stay. And they say, we're going to take you in first. We went in, watched the show. And after the show was over, I said, okay, we're getting ready. She said, no, stay here. And they escorted us out and had a cab waiting for us. What that taught me was this. African-American woman of age, they respected the elderly and they respected us as African-Americans. Why? World War I.
Yeah.
World War I. So, because, the Harlem Hellfighters, World War I. They helped defeat at that time, the Germans against France. And so that was a great experience for her. And of course, I took her to 102.
Wow.
I took her to 102. And I learned a lot during that journey with her. And one of the things I learned is she didn't retire till she's 83.
Just so wild.
Stay mentally active.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. And so somebody asked me the other day, say, Brewer, when are you going to really let it go? I said, never.
Yeah.
Never. I'm going to stay mentally engaged. You obviously know a lot of stuff about me in terms of all the activities that we're involved in.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about that, because I think a lot of times people might think that it's just, serving or giving back in the community is light duty in many ways. And I feel like you've been someone to kind of lean into even challenging things and dare to make possible things that might be difficult for others. What have been, when you think about serving, you've served at various levels, but when it comes to community work, to lifting up your neighborhood, to being of service to others in the community that you live, what's been most challenging about that?
Well, first of all, let me tell you what the basis for that is. It's a book by Bob Buford called Halftime.
Yeah.
The first part of your life, you focus on success. That was the career. That was the Navy. That was the 35 plus years in the Navy. And that was superintendent of schools in LA. The second half of your life, you focus on what is significant. So that significance manifested itself in my mother and this community. I say, if I'm going to be here for umpteen years, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to help the youth of the country. I've always been focused on the youth. So I was asked, my class, the greatest class that ever graduated from Jones High in 1963, my class started the Jones High School Foundation. And so Louise Dinkins, one of the founders, said, David, can you come in and help me? I said, sure. So I basically became president of Jones High School Foundation. We've since I've been president, we've raised over $600,000.
Wow.
Sent the band and the wind ensemble rather and the choir to play at Carnegie Hall. That was a huge deal. And then we take the football team, we send them out of state, and we have a STEM program at Princeton. The only high school in the South that has a program at Princeton called the W.E.B. Du Bois Accelerated Learning Academy, Biomedical Engineering and Technology, Medical Science, applied math, and AI. Some of the kids from that program have launched to really big and better things. So that's a passion. So I was raising money. Then my neighbor right here in the community, Judge Belvin Perry, I'm quite sure y'all going to interview him. He said, David, I need your help. I said, what do you need now? Belvin. I said, Belvin. I don't call him Judge.
For your honor.
Your honor. No, he's younger than me. So anyway, I said, Belvin, what do you need? He said, I want you to come over here and help me on the board of Bethune, because they were having some problems at the time. And so, I'm on the board of Bethune-Cookman University, and I'm on the national board of Read to a Child. And so that program is a volunteer program where a volunteer goes in and reads to a 1st through 4th grader once a week. Why? Because if a child is at grade level, by 3rd grade, the trajectory of their lives change dramatically. If they do not, then that's when you start going to prison.
So true.
And going into poverty. And so that program is extremely successful, over 99% in terms of reading interest, comprehension, and all of those things. So I've been on that board longer than I've been, frankly speaking, president of the, maybe not quite, president of Jones High School Foundation.
Wow.
And that program is a national program. In fact, we probably I'm gonna have to work on trying to get some funding. We can get it here, especially since you all are doing your big things over here at Orange Center, because that changes the trajectory. And so the halftime piece for me in the second half, to be honest with you, was driven by what happened in 1980. 1976. How many people you think we had in jail?
Oh, I wouldn't even dare to guess.
300,000.
Total, as a country.
Yeah, overall, Wow. I mean, when I say that, I'm talking about, the major prisons.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about local jails.
Yeah.
Major prisons. Yeah. Okay, so in 1980, what happened? War on drugs, right?
Yeah.
Boom. Over the next 20 years, we exploded to over 2 million. We had one of the highest per capita prison populations in the world. Yeah. And it has not really changed. No. And a lot of it is manifested. Obviously, drugs was a major part of that, but it should have been a different way to handle that. And so I'm committed. The reason then, of course, I'm a part of 100 Black Men of Orlando. That's that piece. That's why I took that piece. I am the chairman of Project Success for 100 Black Men of Greater Orlando. Okay, so Ron Rogers in this community asked me, they call me David III. David III, come help me over here at 100 Black Men. So I said, okay, fine. And so we have raised over almost $2.5 million. We have the, right here at Jones High School, and we meet twice a month. It's a college prep program, and we're having tremendous success. This year, over the last 3 years, we've had students score extremely high on the SAT. Extremely high. We've had a student score as high as 1,500 on the SAT.
Wow.
Now, do we still have challenges? Heck yes.
Yeah.
Do we still need help? Yes. So I don't get it twisted. Yeah, we're having some success out there, but do we need more? Think about that prison population. Think about that 2 million people in jail. Yes, 100 Black Men of Greater Orlando still need you. We still need help here.
And we have extraordinary children there.
Yes, yes. We will create success with the right support.
Yes. Is there been, you've mentioned some names of friends and colleagues over the year and neighbors. Has there been an individual or an experience that has been a source of inspiration or motivation for you in these years?
Let's go back. I was in the Jones High School concert chorale, starting in 7th grade. That's when Jones was junior, senior high.
Wow.
So I was in the choir from 7 through 12. And one of the smartest people, not even woman, person that I have ever met was Leslie Brewer Weaver. Leslie Brewer Weaver was our choir director. And think about this, you can't do this now, but in 1960, when Kennedy was running against Nixon, she asked us, she said, who do y'all think should win the presidential election? And we said, oh, well, Nixon's got the most experience. He should probably be elected president. She says, oh, no. And she just ran down Kennedy and how brilliant he was and how, he would be a much better president. And you can't do that now, of course. And so then she said, you know what? She shut down choir rehearsal another time. She said, you know what? Y'all don't read enough. Leslie Brewer Weaver broke out the New York Times crossword puzzle and worked it in class. And this is in the 60s. I still can't work the New York Times crossword puzzle.
She sounds amazing.
I mean, so the inspiration for that, just to be so academically strong, came from people like that. Now, there were others. Obviously, Mrs. Butts was my English teacher. Mr. Smith was my chemistry teacher. And Freeman Coney was the physics teacher. So Freeman Coney launched Sylvester Gates, Dr. Sylvester James Gates, who went on as a top physics student at Jones under Coney, scored 94 on the national physics exam. And so they sent some people, MIT.
And is a legend till this day.
Yeah, the MIT sent some people down and said, wait a minute, who is this kid out of Jones High School? He goes on to MIT, of course, gets a PhD and doctorate, and now he's one of the top physicists in the world. The moral of that story is I go to Prairie View, I take physics, I ace physics twice.
Wow.
They say, who are you? I said, I'm not anybody, but I had a teacher by the name of Freeman Coney at Jones High School.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. And I think that legacy of, people that others may not know, but faithfully played a role for so long. I think about how many others for whom he planted an understanding of physics, maybe a passion for the sciences. Remind me, how did you connect with Lift Orlando? When did you first hear about Lift Orlando? Do you remember that?
Yes, because of purpose-built communities. Okay.
Yeah.
I was, in fact, Warren Buffett's sister, Doris Buffett, and I became friends. And so we kind of understood the purpose. She was in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I was still in Centerville in my home. I was still there, but I hadn't come home per se. So I hooked up with her right after I left superintendent schools in LA. So I started watching this whole purpose-built community process. My philosophy was very simple, and this is why Lift is so important. My philosophy is very simple. And I don't want to get into too much trouble when I say this, but our political leadership cannot solve this problem because they operate in 2, 4, and 6 year cycles. Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm 80 years old. I'm unfiltered.
And you've earned the right to be so.
I've seen what happens.
Yeah.
If they could have solved it, they would have solved it. The people who are going to solve it are going to be organizations like Lift and the people in those communities. They are going to put their arms around these children and move them through the system, et cetera.
And make long-term commitments.
Right. Yeah. And it's going to be organizations like 100 Black Men.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what's going to do this. Now, how do you scale that? Is the key.
Absolutely.
How do you scale that is the key. I think politicians should facilitate, but they're not going to be able to lead it because they're not. It's because it's not their fault sometimes because they just aren't there long enough in many cases. This is a long-term project.
It is. And I think that was one of the realizations for us that led to starting MIF was kind of realizing that the actors most charged with solving these problems have the shortest life cycles in those seats, in those roles. When you, all the things that you're doing today, all the ways that you're serving and getting involved, what excites you most about the future?
Well, I think what excites me most about the future is that we've got a lot of young people coming up and that are brilliant. Yeah. All they need is someone to guide them and resource them. Okay. When you look out at Jones right now, Jones is the highest poverty high school in Orange County, period. 77% poverty. All of our children in 100 Black Men are Title I. Okay. They're Title I. They're free and reduced lunch kids. Do we lose some of them? That's why I said we still need support. The ones that we can hold on to and get them through the system are going to do extremely well. But I'm going to be brutally honest with you. We lose some kids. And the way we lose them in many cases is that something goes down in the family and something goes down financially with them. One of the things that I learned when I was in LA is something called the mobility rate. If you can keep them in the school, if you can keep them in the communities, you got a good shot at educating them. But guess what? A lot of times they're moving. Yeah. And a lot of times something really bad happens in that poverty cycle. So we've been very successful in that regard, but it's just so much to do. I mean, you got 1,600 kids at Jones, 77% free or reduced lunch. And guess what? That's why I think that through the Jones High School Foundation, one of the reasons we support our athletics and as well as the academics is because our coach Elijah Williams, is focused. Yes, he wins football games. Yes, we want to win a state championship. But the number one goal is to get those kids a college education. We have the highest college scholarship rate. Let me repeat that. We have the highest college scholarship rate of any football team in the state of Florida over the last 9 years now, 9 years, 168 college scholarship football players. Okay. That's what we're about. That's why the Jones High School Foundation reaches out. I'm going to put in a plug. I need $35,000 to send them to play at L.A.
I was going to say, please do. Yes.
I need $35,000 so to send them. And the reason we do it, by the way, people say, well, why are you sending them to L.A.? Because 80% of our kids have never flown on an airplane. And the old St. Augustine era philosophy applies. The world is a book, and those who do not travel only read one page. Yeah. That's why we put our teams and our choir and our band and all of them on the road to travel. Like I said,
you open up their world.
Yeah, I mean, Jones High is the highest poverty high school in in Orange County. Guess what? These kids, and when the kids that I'm sending to Princeton, most of them have never been on an airplane. Okay, I'm sending 4 to 6 kids a year to Princeton, and they say, Admiral, I'm scared. I said, don't worry, you'll be okay. But in all seriousness, that's what we do. You know, this is a passion, you can tell.
Well, Admiral, I'm so grateful for your time and wisdom. I'll ask you one more question.
Okay.
We're going to launch this year, this campaign we call We Lift Orlando. And the purpose of the We Lift Orlando campaign is basically to communicate, to lift our city, to lift up our neighbors. It's not something one organization can do.
Right.
No one person can do it. It really could and should be all of us.
Yes.
And for the person listening to this, thinking about how they can make a difference, how they could play a role in their own community, what piece of wisdom or advice or encouragement would you offer them?
Well, you find out what your core competencies are. You know, what are you good at? You know, if it's reading to a child, read to a child. If it's fundraising, come on. Yeah. And the reason I say fundraising, I say, let me tell y'all something. A lot of y'all remember the black church out here, so I know how y'all raise money. I know y'all right. Y'all have that skill set.
You're not unfamiliar.
No, you're not unfamiliar with raising money. so make sure you understand that.
Yes.
But also volunteer. Yeah. Help us. You know, these children need to see people who are successful. And I mean, when I say successful, I mean stable in many cases.
Totally.
Okay, you don't have to be a superstar or a doctor or a lawyer or nothing. They don't need to see that. But the one thing that children need to understand is that, do you care? That's all you really got to do. You got to show up and care.
More than anything.
If you show up and care, that's all they need. Okay? In many cases, that's all they need. That's what's so surprising about read to a child. The people who are reading to them, these are first, second, third, fourth graders. Yeah. They don't want to know about your career. They want to know if you care. Do you like me? Okay? Seriously. That relationship, the 3 R's in education: relevance, relationships, and rigor. Okay, rigor, relevance, and relationships. Do not discount that relationship.
That is so good, Admiral. You mentioned your podcast. Please let people know, where can they follow you and your daughter.
We're on the podcast is called The Brewer Report. It's on health and nutrition, and we're on YouTube, Instagram, and you're probably going to catch it on Facebook. And we will have a website here pretty soon. You'll see wellnessblue.com. Go to it. You'll see standing by. It will be launched here very soon.
Awesome. And say the name again of the podcast.
The Brewer Report.
The Brewer Report.
And Wellness Blue is wellnessblu.com. No E on the blue.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Admiral. Appreciate you.
Got it.
You're a blessing, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you. All the degrees in the world and all the world-class experiences and qualifications will not beat the simple power of that truth, of prioritizing relationships, of showing up and caring when it comes to the key and fundamental ways to make a difference in the life of a child. So proud to have the Admiral with us and for him to share that story with you. I hope that you found it helpful as you engage in this work as either a resident, a community investor, or a partner coming alongside a community forging a brighter future ahead. Please let us know what you think about these stories. Would love your comments. Make sure to share them. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It's how we can get this message further and see more neighborhoods become places where children grow up with hope and return with joy.